If someone else is a better advocate for you than you are, it's time to change that. Learn how right now. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I hope you enjoyed a beautiful Mother's Day weekend and also took some time for yourself to just be. I have a question for you. Have you ever held back your ideas, opinions, or desires because you were afraid of seeming too bold, too aggressive, or just not nice enough? If so, you're going to love today's conversation with Ivna Curry. For years, Ivna struggled with being shy, overly agreeable, and constantly apologizing for simply existing in a room. In this episode, Ivna shares how she went from invisible to influential and how you can too. In this episode, you'll learn the surprising power of blending feminine and masculine energy in communication, how to set boundaries and say no without guilt, and practical ways to speak up, be heard, and lead with confidence, even if you're an introvert. So whether you're shifting careers, stepping into leadership, or just ready to stop playing small, this episode is your permission to take up space and own your voice. And don't forget to stay till the end for the key takeaways. Welcome, everyone, to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a career and life transitions podcast. If you're asking yourself, what's next? You are in the right place. I interview incredible women across the globe for this podcast who will share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their insights and expertise on how to rediscover who you really are, what you really want, and how to get there in your next stage of life. This week, I'm really thrilled to have on the show Ivna Curry. Ivna empowers professionals to confidently advocate for themselves and for their ideas at work so that their voices can drive impact, career growth, and recognition, all without causing backlash. She's a host of the Speak Your Mind Unapologetically podcast. She's a TEDx speaker, Forbes contributor, and author of Unapologetic Voice. Her work has inspired millions of people to speak up with conviction, unlock their leadership potential, and make their own voices heard. It's great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, and thank you for having me, Kavita.
So before we start in your expertise, I wanted to kind of get a feel for many of my clients who are looking to transition in their careers, especially, often lack that confidence in themselves. And I know I love your mission of your business to help people really reclaim their voice with confidence. And I believe you did that as well. And that led you to what you're doing today. So maybe you could give us a little bit of a background and an overview of your reinvention, how you reclaimed your voice so that others might be inspired to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share a little bit about my story. And I think a lot of people might relate to this as well. So as far as I remember, all the way up to my early 30s, but especially in my teens and my 20s, I was very introverted, shy, and agreeable, definitely a people pleaser. I was very apologetic in everything I did, in every conversation. It was almost like I felt like the act of speaking was bothering someone,
Oh,
right? It
wow.
was taking up their time. And it was pretty strong. I was incredibly passive and I'm naturally, I would say, empathetic and sensitive. And so that almost made it worse with the whole fear of taking up people's time, upsetting them. I took full responsibility for anybody who felt upset or with me or had a problem. So their negative feelings were because of me, because I was
Mhm.
doing something wrong. And
Wow.
as you can imagine, that wasn't fun.
No, that could bring on a lot, especially when you're younger. It's like you take on everybody else's negativity almost, right? So,
That too, right? Taking on the
yes.
negativity and just trying to be this nice, studious, obedient, agreeable girl. And that went on until when I was 24, turning 25, I was appointed a team for the first time. And this was in a new job. And that's when things started to really fall apart for me
Mm.
because I was excited to be a leader and had all these great meetings with all my new team members. I started off with 4. And I sat with each one of them. They were all very frustrated because they had several leaders before that and it wasn't going well. So I spent a lot of time listening and being empathetic and doing the thing that I knew how to do well. And they were not happy. They were not having any of it. In fact, they felt like I wasn't a strong enough leader for them. They intervened one day. I came to work and they immediately pulled me into an office, my entire team. The team had grown a little bit by then. And they said, "This is an intervention, Ivna. This is not working for us." And they had already talked to my boss, who was the chief commercial officer, about this, that they were going to do this intervention. And I didn't know any of this. And they said, "You're so nice. You're a nice leader. We can tell you care about us, but we don't feel like you're actually going to drive change, right? Because
Wow,
you're
they
not
said
really
that.
seeing it."
Really?
They
Wow.
said that
Wow. Okay.
because I was too soft.
Mm.
And when your employees tell you that you're too soft, that stirs something up in you. And at the same time, my leader, even the first day, I think I even mentioned this to you, the first day of work, he took me to our biggest client at the time, which was Walmart, I believe. And there was a very unhappy supply chain executive. And our job was just meeting between the 3 of us. My boss was a chief commercial officer, me, who had no idea what I was doing.
Mm.
And this guy was super angry. And I just wanted to stay quiet and hide. And my boss made me sit right next to him. And he would ask me, "What do you think, Yvna?" in the meeting. And once we got into the car on our way back to the office, he asked again, "What do you think we should do? How should we proceed?" And that was the story of my life with this manager and this team in the next year and a half working in that job. And it was the most transformational year of my life.
Wow. So did you, in that meeting, were you speaking up at that time or were you and like, did you speak up when he asked you that question in front of the client?
I didn't. I didn't.
Okay.
I said, "No, I agree. I agree with what you guys were saying." I was too scared. I didn't think it
Mm.
was my place. I didn't think it was, I didn't think I knew enough to be allowed to say anything. I didn't think my opinion mattered. And I think that's something that a lot of people experience. And it took a while. It took several, well, daily, essentially, uncomfortable conversations and a very supportive manager at the time who was willing to put the effort because he saw in me the daughter that he wanted to have and he really wanted to coach me to become successful in leading the company. But he was supportive not in the sense of saving me or creating psychological safety. He was supportive in the sense of putting me in the fire
Mm.
zone, asking me to handle difficult situations and asking for my opinion. And then when I failed, he would coach me on how to handle the situation myself. He never fixed the problem for me, but he always patiently coached me through my problems so that I
Wow.
could speak and handle them myself.
To have leaders like that everywhere, wouldn't that be amazing?
The best. I had 14 managers, and he was the best of all. He drove me into the most uncomfortable situations, but he was definitely the best of all.
So through that experience, that's how you learn to find your own voice then, through going through these difficult situations and coming out the other side, I guess. Is that correct? Or
Well, that was the starting point for sure. That really brought a huge leap initially for me. And from there, I still studied a lot how to speak up, assertive communication, how to influence people. And I started to do personal experiments and reflect and try new things and see, okay, let's see how people respond if I'm a little bit edgier here, if I push a little here, if I follow up over here, if I actually say something here when I'm not completely sure of myself, let's see what happens. And I created these experiments by design. And through that, I started to challenge myself in what I thought I had to be or how I had to communicate. And that helped me learn to speak up and suddenly start to feel proud of myself and significantly, massively reduce the stress I had in meetings and in interpersonal conversations and just feel more confident about myself. And I gained this new sense of freedom because I could finally talk about express myself fully and not be so worried all the time about how people were going to respond.
Wonderful. I love that you gained a new sense of freedom. And so then you went on to teach others how to do that. And that's what you're doing now. Did you find that there was a gap? There's, I mean, people obviously you do because that's what you do, what you're doing now. But how did you jump from going to the corporate world to this entrepreneurial journey that you're on now?
Your questions are great. Are great. So I did incorporate that mission. I've always had this idea, even before I struggled and I discovered how to find my voice. I always had this sense of, I was very studious. I was really good with school and university and learning things and physics and math and all of that. But I always struggled with other skills that were not taught, right? Interpersonal skills, financial skills, how to negotiate skills, and how to sell myself and my ideas skills. And I always had this vision of building a school for life skills for any age, where we get to learn these skills that we get to apply in all aspects of our life. Like, for example, assertive communication is something that I apply with my husband, with my parents, with my brother, with my mother-in-law, with my bosses, with my employees, with my clients. And it makes the world of a difference in every single situation. And so when I started to think about that, and I actually pitched this during my business school. We had like two entrepreneurial boot camps, and I created this concept, and I thought, well, let me start with one skill. Let me start this school with one skill. What's the number one skill that I wish I had learned earlier? And the answer was assertive communication, one that had made the biggest difference in my life. And I realized a lot of people struggled with that skill because they confuse assertiveness with aggressiveness, and they don't want to speak up. They go too quiet because they don't want to hurt other people's feelings or be seen as aggressive. It's just very confusing for people. And it was for me.
Wow.
That's where I started on this mission.
Amazing. I love that. I love that. I always love hearing the stories because it's about the lessons that we learn as individuals, and that when we learn these things that help us or that have transformed our lives, it's like we want to give back to share that with others. So that's absolutely fantastic. Going back to that meeting that you were with your boss and then the other agitated customer who was also a man. Many women, especially, right? We find ourselves in this kind of situation that you were in, and that many people listening, I'm sure, and where there's a lot of this masculine energy, right? In meetings or in the workplace. So what are your thoughts about the kind of the balance between that masculine type energy, which is aggressive, I guess, not necessarily meaning it's all just men, but it's that masculine type of energy versus our feminine the feminine energy, and how does that complement each other?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. And when we have this, our feminine energy to give, the only challenge is that sometimes we don't feel heard. We hear so much others, but then we don't feel heard. And I think it's important to find that balance. And I'm going to share a little bit about my experience with that. But before that, I do feel like there's a lot of opportunity to utilize our feminine energy, our caring and nurturing energy, right? The whole empathy and creating connection and using our emotional intelligence and finding ways to collaborate with others versus dictate. The mama bear, right? Where one of the things the studies show that women struggle sometimes to advocate for themselves, but they have no trouble advocating for others, right? So that fierceness and that masculine energy shows up when advocating for others, but maybe not for ourselves. I'm all about finding ways to advocate for ourselves with a little bit of that fierceness as well, because sometimes we're not going to find people who are going to do that for us. So that's why I believe we do need that balance. Another great application, something that women do much better, I feel like, than men, that feminine energy, is creating psychological safety for others so that they feel comfortable speaking up. And I think that's a very strong attribute of leaders to be able to do. I think women do that exceptionally well if they leverage that feminine energy and inviting others to the conversation, into the meeting, ensuring everyone has a chance to speak and offering words of encouragement and making people truly feel heard and acknowledging their feelings. All of those things I feel like are very positive and related to the feminine energy. However, before I move on, do you have any comments on that before I share?
No, I love that.
Experience?
Especially that I never really thought about the mama bear thing concept, because yes, you're right. We have no problem advocating for others, like our kids or like whoever it is. But then, oh no, it's that mama bear thing. So that visual was really powerful for me. So thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Now, I want to share my experience, right? I always had a lot of that nurturing feeling, like, for example, with my team members, I felt like I was their mother in a way, that my mission was to support them and help them grow as individuals and leaders, and not necessarily, my motivation came from that and not from serving the business goals. Even though I was driven by results because I knew how to deliver on them, what motivated me every day was like, oh, I'm going to nurture my team because they're my babies. It was a strange thing, but that's how I felt. And at the time, and what I've started to do, I was saying in my mid 30s and early 30s, was to start to cultivate my masculine energy. Now, I've been someone who has always worked amongst men, right? I studied electrical engineering. I worked in analytics, revenue management, a lot of men, a lot of male energy. But I never took that on. I just kept myself separate. But then I started to allow myself to explore the masculine energy. And I felt myself attracted to certain types of masculine energy, a lot more than feminine energy. And I just allowed myself to be curious and explore that. And after a few years of that, on the other side, I discovered a version of myself that felt a lot more like me than the previous Ivana. Had a lot more feminine energy. So I feel, when people recently who know me well, have been using adjectives that nobody would ever use before. I was typically called nice, soft-spoken, caring, that kind of thing. But recently I've been described as relentless.
Nice.
Alpha.
Okay.
And a bit definitive. And those things actually feel right for me right now, a lot more than before. And I actually feel so much more powerful, so much more me, so much more authentic with my masculine energy. I would never know this if I had not explored it. And I feel like what happened was as like many of us, we grew up to be nice, kind, nurturing, empathetic girls, obedient girls. And we're just nurtured in that way. We're expected to behave in that way. And then we feel like that's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized, and I never understood, I'm a Leo. And I
Oh,
said,
I am too. I
you're
believe.
too? Well, there you go. Maybe you relate to this. I felt like I would read the Leo descriptions and I would say, this is not me.
Yeah,
I'm not-
I agree. I agree. Like in certain ways, like when I'm with my kids, like it's like that's a mama bear thing. Yeah. But you're right. You're right. I love that because it's so interesting that other people are the adjectives they use to describe you now. It's completely opposite to what
opposite.
you. But the good thing is that it feels right for you,
Oh, I feel
right?
so good in those new words. And
Wow.
I feel just good being that person. I don't know, it's my happy place. I feel more
Nice.
authentic that I can actually truly express myself without holding back.
Wonderful. I think that's the main message is that, in my opinion, is that when you discover these parts of yourself that you hadn't explored before, as long as it feels authentic to you and that feels right, then that's the right thing. So, I mean, this is very powerful. Anybody listening to this, like if you feel like you have that like, kind of a masculine energy that you need to explore, then listen to Ivana because she's obviously experienced that. There's one question I had just as a follow up is that what is a balance between being that real masculine aggressive energy or that aggressiveness or bossiness, I guess, versus being more assertive? Like I know you touched on it a little bit before, but how do we strike that balance?
So, what I like to talk about is I even love the concept of empathetic assertiveness. So, often what I see, especially with women, is they downplay themselves and the importance of things for them, of what their needs, their ideas, their perspectives, in order to connect, in order to build that empathy, in order to serve others and allow their voices to be heard and be agreeable and be liked. However, that's not the best approach because it silences us, it reduces us, and it's disrespectful to ourselves. What I encourage instead is to be fully masculine when you speak up with that energy. Be yourself, just let that be, let that go without societal expectations, but in a way that's respectful to others. And before, in between, and after that, add the feminine elements. So when we are listening and engaging with others, feminine energy. When we are speaking up, masculine energy. So let's say you're in a meeting, you have a perspective to share an idea, and you feel like people are interrupting you and you really want to get your point across.
Mm-hmm.
So the masculine energy is to basically make sure your point is heard, to speak it with definitiveness, conviction, because that makes people want to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I hear you. I'm going to finish my thought. I have 3 points to cover. I covered one so far. Let me finish my other 2 points. That is masculine energy. I'm taking up space and I deserve this space. The feminine energy. And then I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Now switch back to masculine. Conviction. Speak like you mean it, like you believe in what you have to say. Well, as I was saying, I believe that this and this and this, right? This is my perspective. This is what I believe we need to do moving forward. Shift to feminine energy. So those are my thoughts. What about you? What do you think about this? I know you have a good experience in this area. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I value what you have to say. Now you listen and empathize and validate and acknowledge feminine energy. Now, when you have something to say again and you want to be heard, masculine energy. It's just this constant back and forth within seconds. And that's one way of doing it. But another one, for example, another classical example is when we need to deliver constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm.
We have to say it from a place, we can't sugarcoat it. Right. So there's a bit more of masculine energy there. The secret is obviously there's a way of saying it, right? That's non-judgmental and all that good stuff. Observing the situation and behaviors that you want to change and not attacking the person. But on top of that, there is an ideal ratio of 3 to 6 compliments for every piece of criticism. Those compliments are feminine energy. So stack up on those compliments throughout whenever they're deserved, whenever they're real, and you feel like people deserve those compliments and praise, so that when you actually have to have a hard conversation, it's much, people are more likely to listen to you and hear what you have to say because they believe that you care.
Those are really great examples. Thank you. So it's really about kind of shifting between these two types of energy and in the right situation. And that's where you find your voice, and that's where people will listen to you, and that you get your points across in a powerful but caring way, in a way as well. So, right.
That's right.
I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit slightly different, in that I read in your bio and in your description that you really are dedicated to empowering underrepresented voices in order for them to be more influential and persuasive communicators. So tell me about that. Where is this passion coming from, and what kind of voices are you talking about there? Is there a certain type of people, or like part of society, or certain members of society that you are focused on, or is that just generally? What is
Actually, there are a couple of groups. One of the things that I found in particular, at least in my career, I think it depends on the areas, but I've been typically working in more male-dominated areas and industries where I look at the top and all of the decision makers are older white men. And it feels very homogeneous, not only in how they look, but in how they behave. And sometimes I would just wish that there were more diversity at the top, right? Because then it just benefits everyone going forward, going down. Like, there's so many other examples of where power is given, for example, to women. The Grameen Bank, for example, power and money was given to the women in the families, these poor families, because they believed that they would do better choices on how to invest that money to build businesses to sustain their families, versus the men would just go out and buy drinks and burn all the money. So I believe there's so much value in having more diverse perspectives and backgrounds at the top. And by diversity and diverse voices, it's not just how we look, right? It's not just women and Asians and Black people, and it's not just that, and Indigenous and Latinos. It's also introverts, because companies and meetings don't favor introverts that much, unless maybe in certain sectors like technology, but in general, it's just not perceived positively. Another one, I feel like immigrants, anybody who has an accent or English is their second language, struggles a lot with making themselves heard. People who tend to have a more feminine energy than masculine energy, they don't get to the top, right? They're not heard as much because the top is dominated by more of that masculine energy that you were talking about. And so creatives versus logical people. I mean, there's so many different aspects that you could look at.
What about ageism, like people who are older in the workforce?
That too.
That topic comes up quite a bit here, in that after a certain age, especially for women, there's a lot of biases. And so they need to learn to use their voice more. So do you see that a lot as well? Or?
Yeah, it has come up a couple times for sure. The ageism, definitely, women with children in young age. I mean, there's so many different aspects. So how can we make ourselves heard and not depend on others to create that psychological safety for us, or to help us, or to rescue us? I don't believe in that. I believe that we need to become our own best advocates. If there's someone out there that's a better advocate for you than you are, then we need to work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I love what we say, because often you think about diversity as just being how you look, but these characteristics of introverts or people who are immigrants or creatives, those are also underrepresented people. So that's a nice perspective on that. Thank you. So how do we say no without feeling guilty or sounding unhelpful? Like when we really don't want to do something, especially, I mean, I find especially as women, we're so used to giving, right? And it's when the thought of saying no is just so hard. So your thoughts on that? I believe it's really around setting boundaries around ourselves and establishing those boundaries. But just any thoughts on that from your experience?
Yeah, it definitely is around those boundaries, and it's hard because we feel guilty. That was the dominating feeling that I had when I was not assertive. Was everything that went wrong, I felt guilty. If I said no, I felt guilty. If I didn't do something, I felt guilty. If I was late, I felt guilty. If I talked about my feelings, I felt guilt. Everything was guilt, and it's just not a very helpful feeling in most situations. It doesn't really help us or others. And it's really about feeling that we're going to disappoint other people or let them down, and we're selfish. And I always felt like, oh, maybe they would say yes to me, so I have the obligation of saying yes to them. Or I would self-justify. Oh, I should make time for this. Like, I can do it, so I should do it.
Sure.
Why would I not be helpful? I mean,
Yeah.
that's selfish. I don't understand. So in my mind, that generated so much guilt, and I didn't realize that there was a halfway in between. Right? I didn't have to give up myself or just be blunt with other people. So a couple of techniques, I'm going to share three little ones here. One is just affirm the relationship. It's always helpful to affirm the relationship or our intention to be supportive and helpful, even if our answer is no. Hey, I appreciate you thinking of me for this. I would love to help if I could, or just showing that your intention is positive, that you appreciate them, and that you're hoping their situation to improve and to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is, and it's very important, to assert our no. When we're talking about our no, it's got to be strong, non-apologetic. Otherwise, people are just going to bulldozer over it and ignore it. And we can't over-justify. And people who feel guilty tend to over-justify their decisions. So we need to keep it simple. Hey, unfortunately, I can't do this, or I can't because I have some prior commitments. Done. Move on.
Right.
You're going to say something?
That sounds a little bit like me. Sometimes I kind of over justify things. So this is really good for me.
Me too. That's still
Yeah.
to this day, that's my tendency. That's why I love these little tips and skills, because when we're in that moment, that emotional moment, feeling like we have to over justify, especially with a figure of authority, for example, or anyone that we like, and we don't want to disappoint, or there's that guilt built in, we're very nice people. If we don't have another version of self-talk to help us change our habits and our behavior, we're going to default to our old self-talk, which is, you're not being nice enough. You gotta justify yourself. You gotta give them a good reason. And that's why just having, I can actually add caring in another way. I can offer alternative support or options. Hey, have you considered doing this? Just by asking a question like that shows that you're interested in their success and things working out for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or saying, I hope it goes well. Or following up later and saying, how did that go? Were you able to sort that through? Just asking that question shows that you care, you're considerate, you're looping back and seeing if it worked out for them. And that shows that you care without you having to give away your energy, time, and
Right.
and peace.
Great. So affirm the relationship, right? Assert our no, and then following up later. Those are three you're going to share.
Yes. And you can offer also any type of alternative ideas and support on how they can solve that problem, like a next step for them that doesn't involve you.
Right.
I'm going to give one more tip, which is
yes, please.
People like, I always say probably us. I think even though we're Leos, like we're very good listeners and empathetic with people, we tend to give our time away for free, and we don't see it as giving something. And when we give our time, that is the most precious thing in our life, is our time, and we have to value that. And so remember that just by giving your time to someone, that's a massive gift.
You're so right.
Time and attention.
Yes.
Which
I needed to hear that today,
now,
I think. I think I needed to hear that today. So thank you for that. Really important. Giving your time away for free. That's very important. Wow, I feel like we could talk for a long time. There's so much interesting stuff here, and I love how you shared your story and how, as a result of going from being a shy, introverted person to now helping people find their voice is so amazing. So I really appreciate all of the tips you've given as well. So maybe you could share with my audience how can, if somebody's looking for advice or help or coaching or anything like that, how can we find you?
Yeah, they can find me. You can find me on my podcast, Speak Your Mind Unapologetically. So just on any podcast platform of your choice, just Google Speak Your Mind Unapologetically podcast and you'll find that. Or the newsletter, I also have a newsletter at assertiveway.com/newsletter, where you'll get tips every week on how to use your voice, make yourself heard, and speak up unapologetically. And then there's the book Unapologetic Voice as well that's available.
Fantastic. Wonderful. And we'll have all the information in the show notes so people can access that. So before we go, Ethan, any last words for people who may be listening who are kind of wondering, okay, I really want to do this thing. I really want to change my career. I really want to go for this thing, but I'm just really not confident in myself. I just really am not. So any final thought?
Yes. So first of all, you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be successful. You deserve to be recognized and appreciated. But no one's going to do that. We can't hope and wish for that to happen. We have to take action. We have to take full responsibility for the outcomes that we want. It's our duty to support ourselves in our happiness and our success and make our voices heard. And one of the things that can absolutely help us motivate us to get through the fear and do it anyway, get through the lack of confidence and do it anyway, is just having a goal worth pursuing and really understanding what our big goal is. What are we doing this for? Why do we want to be heard? Why does it matter? And making that goal bigger than our fears. And that's what's going to propel us, give us the motivation to get uncomfortable and do the things that we don't feel like doing when we need to do them. That would be my tip.
Love it. I love it. Make our goals bigger than our fears. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful conversation, Kavit, and I really enjoyed being here. And thank you for your listeners who are here with us right now.
Absolutely. And again, I encourage them to reach out to you, and I look forward to being on your podcast as well.
I really look forward to having you there.
Take care. Wow, what an inspiring and practical conversation with Ivna Curry. Here's what I want you to take away from this episode. Number 1, you can speak up with confidence without compromising your kindness or authenticity. Number 2, you don't have to choose between being assertive and being likable. It's about owning your energy and knowing when to use it. And number 3, and probably most importantly, you deserve to be heard, recognized, and valued, especially in this next stage of your life. So if you're feeling that pull, that desire to finally express yourself more fully and step into a new chapter, or make a powerful career or life transition, but you're unsure where to start, I'm here for you, my friend. Let's take the next step together. Book a free breakthrough call with me where we'll explore what's holding you back, what's possible for you, and how you can start creating a life and career that truly reflects who you are. The link to book the call is in the show notes, and I would love to support you. If this episode speaks to you or you would like to provide feedback, a review and rating on Apple Podcasts would go a long way for our messages to be heard by more and more women worldwide. Thank you in advance for doing that. So until next time, my friend, remember, your voice matters, your story matters, and this is your time.